Hey guys, my name is ShadowFall, and in this video we are going to be looking at our favorite marksman hero, Hanabi, and going to be teaching you on how to become a pro Hanabi player, knowing how to use her skills and what her skills even does, and knowing what tips and strategies to use against your opponents, and also knowing what her best build or builds that we are going to be using in this video. So let's get started on this. First things first, let's look at her passive. Her passive allows her basic attacks and skills to go through multiple targets at once, which means that if you're near your minion wave and also there's an enemy hero nearby, and if they're hiding in a bush or out in the open, your skills or basic attacks will hit them as well. Hanabi's first skill allows you to become immune to crowd control effects, but at the same time giving you movement speed and attack speed while the shield is active for 5 seconds. But I would be careful though, because if you're going against any heroes that has stun mechanics, I would try to avoid those heroes as much as possible so you'd be able to at least have enough range to at least deal damage to them before they try to attack you with their skills as well. Hanabi's second skill allows you to deal damage at the same time slowing your enemies down, which means that once you use your second skill, and if you hit any minion, hero, or both, you'll be able to deal extra damage from your basic attacks, dealing mass amounts of damage at the same time. Hanabi's third skill allows enemy heroes to become immobilized for 0.8 seconds while dealing damage. But here's the bonus. Her passive allows her third skill to be used against multiple heroes. So if you use her third skill against multiple heroes, all of the heroes will pretty much be immobilized for 0.8 seconds. So you'll be able to at least dish out as much damage as possible while using your first and second skill. And basic attacks. Now, utilizing her skills is very important because you don't want to have the habit of spamming your skills while you're not in apparent danger. So use your third skill only when you're about to go into a team fight, or you can actually use it as a defensive item when you're needing to run away, so you'll be able to at least have some distance to get away from your enemies. You can also use your second skill to clear your minion wave faster, and you can also dish out damage against the enemy as well. Now, there's a secret to your skills and basic attacks, and this is what I call sequences, meaning how to properly time your skills and basic attacks in a certain situation. Now, your skills can be used in multiple ways. In offensive pushes and team fights, you got 3-2-1 continuous basic attacks, and that's your standard push for team fights. You got 2-3-1 in order for you to at least close in on your enemies to make sure that they don't run away. And you also got 3-1-2 to make sure that you close in on your enemies in team fights as well. With your defensive pushes, you could still use the same skills on your offense pushes, but I would try to at least hold them off from your base as much as possible. Now let's move on to the builds. Hanabi's build paths can be very different, and there's a wide variety of ideas you can put into the build, but there's only one specific build that you can do that is always going to be the right choice for her, and that's the Trinity build. Corrosion Scythe, Golden Staff, and Demon Hunter Sword. Now, your first item should always be your normal boots. You do not want to upgrade your actual boots until you get 2 core items. Your first core item should be Corrosion Scythe, which will give you 30 plus physical attack, 5% movement speed, and 35% attack speed. But your 2 passives will give you your basic attacks, gaining extra physical damage and slowing your target down by 8%, but sadly it's halved for ranged basic attacks, and the duration is 1.5 seconds, and it stacks up to 5 times. And your extra basic attacks will give you 6% extra attack speed for 3 seconds, and also capping at 5 stacks. The next core item is Golden Staff. Golden Staff will give you plus 55 physical attack and 15% attack speed. The passives will give you every 1% extra crit chance gained is converted into 1% extra attack speed. And another passive that will give you is, after every 2 non-crit basic attacks, the attack speed of the next basic attack is increased by 100%, and the attack speed cap is increased to 500%, and it triggers attack effects an additional 2 times. Remember when I said to hold off on buying your boots at the beginning of the game? Now you can actually get them. You can either get 3 boots. You can get Warrior Boots, Tough Boots or Swift Boots. For Warrior Boots, you can gain 5 extra physical defense for 3 seconds when struck by a basic attack, and also capped at 25. You can get Tough Boots for extra magic defense, but also gaining CC and slow duration reduced by 30%, or you can also get Swift Boots for extra movement speed and 15% extra attack speed. I would strongly recommend only getting the Swift Boots because you can also get the extra 15% attack speed added on to the Golden Staff passive. The next core item is Demon Hunter Sword. Demon Hunter Sword will give you plus 35 physical attack and 25% attack speed, and the passives will give you basic attack steal 8% of the target's current HP as extra physical damage, and it's capped at 60 against minions. And the other passive will give you basic attacks grants 3% lifesteal for 3 seconds, and it stacks up to 5 times. Now these 4 items are very perfect for your build, but the last 2 items are depending on the situation and also the enemy lineup. Mainly I would go for Bladed Despair. Bladed Despair also has the highest physical attack power of 160 physical attack with 5% movement speed, and the passive will grant you an attacking enemies will below 50% HP, grants you 25% extra physical attack for 2 seconds, but it does take effect before the damage is dealt. And you got Malefic Roar with the highest physical penetration with 60 plus physical attack, and the unique attribute is 20% extra physical penetration with the passive of when you're attacking an enemy, you gain 0.125% extra physical penetration to each point of the enemy's physical defense, and it's capped at 40%. Now these items are your all year rounder perfect build for Hanabi. Also for your last 2 items, depending on the enemy lineup, you can also go for these items as well. You can get Hansclaws for lifesteal / sustainability, Wind of Nature for physical damage immunity only, Rose Gold Meteor for extra shield and bit of magic defense, and you can also go Fury Hammer if you want some early game penetration. You also got Sea Halberd, which is an anti-heal if the enemy lineup has a lot of heals, but if their game reaches 15 minutes or more, sell your boots for immortality so you can try to avoid having a long respawn time of maximum 72 seconds. But normally as a marksman, don't go for any defensive items because your goal as a marksman is to be as threatening as possible in the late game, and let everybody else go for defensive items depending on what they need for their enemy lineup. Now for the talents, the only 3 talents you need is Swift, Weapons Master, and Quantum Charge. You got Swift for the extra attack speed, you got Weapons Master for extra damage, and you also got Quantum Charge for movement speed and heals for a couple of seconds. You can use Bargain Hunter if you want to get your items a lot quicker, or you can also use Weakness Finder to slow your enemies down with your basic attacks. But sadly, due to your second skill and your third skill, you technically don't need Weakness Finder. But if you want to get that extra slow with your second and third skill, you can also use Weakness Finder as a good option with your Swift and also Weapons Master as your choice. And for the battle spells, you can choose either Inspire or Aegis. Inspire for the extra attack speed plus your heals for about a couple seconds, or Aegis for the protection for shield for 5 seconds as well. Now on to the last topic. Now that you know your skills and how they work and also what items to use with your build, I'm going to be talking about what tips and strategies to use against your opponents by figuring out what position you need to be in, how to take care of your minion wave, and also many other topics that we can talk about along the way. Other than that, let's get started. First thing you need to know is what the best position is while playing Hanabi. The best position if you're near your minion wave is always going to be behind your minion wave, so you can use your bouncers to go after the minion wave and the hero if they're nearby. Or if you have a roamer with you and if you make it to the bushes before your minion wave does, you can set up an ambush so you can force the enemy to lose out on gold from your minion wave. If you're with your teammates, always stay behind your teammates because you want to deal damage from a distance because you are very squishy as a marksman, because if you fight with your teammates, you will guarantee a death within a matter of seconds, and you do not want to go after any defensive items unless you necessarily have to but that's only if you're going in the late game, which immortality will only be your defensive item because of the respawn times in the late game. Now you might be wondering, what if I want to deal damage close range? The tanks and fighters are the only ones that are able to close range unless you have a couple heroes that are ranged attacks, but most marksmen are all ranged attacks. Technically, in my opinion, I always fight safe because if you try to play aggressive in the gold lane, you will sometimes lose out in your lane like 80% of the time because you might either get ganked or you might lose out your lane because the enemy marksman that you're going against is always going to be stronger than you. And they'll have somebody with them at all times because sometimes they'll have a roamer or a jungler with them so that way they can secure their lane as well as you're trying to secure your lane at the same time. Now this is where micro and macro comes to play. What is macro and micro anyway? Micro is using your skills and basic attacks as your combos and knowing when to use them, and macro knowing where everybody is on the map and knowing what the right place at the right time is to secure your objectives and kills. You're gonna have to understand your macro plays first before you start understanding how your micro works. So for macro plays, always look at your map, but for micro plays, try to understand how your combos works and also knowing when to use them at the right place at the right time, just to make sure that you don't get ganked at the same time. Next up is wave management. Wave management is basically manipulating how you want your minion wave to play. The best way to practice wave management is you should get the wave to freeze on your side of the lane just outside of your tower. You need to keep it outside of your tower range so that your tower does not take free damage from the minion wave. Also, number one tip when learning wave management, you should avoid letting the enemy have pressure on your lane, which you can do if you keep it outside of the tower. Also, for wave management, you can do the last hit on any minion wave that it comes by because you'll gain extra gold from it if you do it. Now, Hanabi is a team fight hero, so I would not recommend trying to solo her because you will literally lose your lane as a guarantee if you try to solo, because you may never know if there's a hero nearby that's in those bushes that will try to gank you and secure their lane. Now, if you have a roamer with you, you can play a little aggressive, but not too hard because you don't want to lose your lane at the same time. But if you have a roamer with you, you'll be able to secure your lane at least a little bit better than if you try to solo. Now, is she a good pick in any game? I would actually say yes, because I would have to be reasonable about this because to me, in my own words, I would always put her in S because of how good she is. But to be reasonable, I would have to put her in the A tier because one, she is very squishy, so her health can be a little bit of a downside, but due to her damage, if you have the right build, which is the build that you see up on your screen with the Trinity plus Blade of Despair and Malefic Roar, you can actually deal so much damage once you actually get into the late game, and as long as you stay behind your teammates while dishing out damage, you should be pretty fine. Now let's talk about our final thoughts for this video. Now, can you solo queue your way to Mythical Immortal with Hanabi? I would say yes, but if you're above Epic Plus, it would be kind of risky though, because you're basically gambling on your teammates and hoping to God you have a roamer on your team that's actually good enough to play with Hanabi, because if you don't have a roamer on your team, you better hope to God you can carry your teammates all the way through the end. But at the same time, I would be careful with trolls because they will literally try to force you to carry their all the way through the end. And yeah, that's about it. Thank you guys so much for watching. Did I miss anything in the video? Please let me know in the comment section so that way I may look into it and then also put it into the description so that way everybody knows what you have said and also what we learned in this video as well. Did you also learn anything? Please let me know in the comment section as well. And if you're interested, we also have a Discord server. If you want to join it, the link is in the description below. If you enjoyed the video, leave a like. I'll gladly appreciate it. And also subscribe for more videos just like this so you never miss any videos in the future. And remember, just keep grinding and get your way to Mythical Immortal. So I'll see you guys in the next video. My name is ShadowFall, signing off.